Welcome to the next step in patching the receiver radio. What we've done, if you remember from the last stage, we've downloaded all of the radio patch files. We've also found our 5 magic numbers. Okay, the thing to point out before we actually start doing the patching is that we need to uninstall, if you have done, any of the patch programs that you might have applied in the past, not necessarily by this mechanism but manually. So if you've installed an SSH server, for instance, which is going to boot and run every time during boot, recommend uninstalling that. When you've got the radio streaming, certainly on some of these low memory radios, the radio streaming using some of the codecs, you'll find that it'll use something like 90% of its available memory for buffering. The patch server itself takes a few percent of memory. The SSH server takes, I think it's 8% of memory, so you can find that very, very quickly you can use the remaining 10% of memory up and not leave a lot of memory for the buffering, and you might find that some of the codecs start working. So uninstall any of the applications that you previously installed to put your radio back into its default state, and we can get going with the patch server. Most of you won't have that problem. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we'll launch the patch server. Okay, this is telling me we haven't run this before. We don't digitally sign the program, so you will get this message. You need to accept it. You may also get messages from your firewall saying, please, can I use it, or this port or service is blocked. You need to make sure it's unblocked and you allow it to run. Okay, accept our terms and conditions, or if you don't want to accept it, that's fine. You won't be able to go any further. Okay, what you need to do here is enter the address of your real domain name server. In my case, 192.168.2.1. Look on your list. In my case, it's my ADSL modem. And the next thing we want to do is select a patch file. We're going to start with the test patch to demonstrate to ourselves that it's all going to work. There's a README file associated with each. Have a read, it'll tell you what's going on. And here you'll see that we're running a web server on port 80 and a DNS server on port 53. If you have any web server running and you didn't manage to shut it down, this running a web server will fail. The program patch server will exit now. You need to make sure you shut down those programs, keep running the patch server, shut down programs until you work out which is the program that's running running the web server. Your computer can't do two things at once. Okay, onto your radio. The next thing to do is this radio is switched on, playing a radio station. Hit back, go into configure, go into network config, and this time rather than view config we want to edit config. Automatic. Now this is probably your default, and we want to do things manually. Enter the IP address. So we've already written down our IP address on our magic list. You need to enter that now using the back key and the scrolling left right keys. Enter the network mask, again, or from your magic list. Enter the gateway address, in my case it's my ADSL modem, my net gearbox, and the domain name server number 1. Now this one here, you want to enter the address of your PC, whichever machine's running the patch server. In my case it's 192.168.2.17, not my normal gateway. So this is the one you need to enter differently. Okay, and domain name server number 2, select no, I don't want to add one of those. Okay, and what your radio will now do is reconnect to the network but use your PC as your domain name server. So what you'll see is you'll see some names go past on the screen here, looking up addresses, and it'll carry on working as normal. But now your PC's acting as a domain name server, you can do the upgrade. So if you hit the back button and go into configure, go into upgrade firmware, checking for updates, here you go, fetching information. Are you sure you want to do the upgrade? Yes, remember we're doing the test program at the moment. Upgrading firmware. This is the test program, and all it does is print patch testing complete. That's all the test program actually does. It runs a program called LCD print, which is one that we've written from the temporary directory, just runs it and then exits. If you don't see patch testing complete, there's something not quite compatible with your radio. Perhaps some of the the libraries for the LCD screen aren't quite compatible, don't proceed any further. We need to sort out those problems first. Okay, and the radio reboots. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shut down our patch server and we're going to run it again. Allow. Yes, we accept the terms. We're going to put in 192.168.2.1 in my case, which is my gateway. And this time, rather than selecting the test patch, we're going to select the base patch. Okay, in this case it's worth keeping the README file to one side, because here it's got a list of all of the things you will see go past on the screen. Upgrading radio, that's when it's downloading the patch file. When we see patching starting, that's when our script starts running. Sharpfin base, telnet server and web server is our script running, and the last thing our script does is print patching done, rebooting. Okay, so we'll keep that to one side to remind us. Okay, and the next thing to do is switch on the radio. Initializing network, connecting to network, and then you'll see some domain name server lookups going on in this window here. There we go. Okay, you can see here what we've got is we've got dragon.reciva.com has a timeout. Timeouts aren't too much to worry about, because what happens, the protocol used for looking up names isn't guaranteed, so you'll see timeout, and then it was okay. It's an example of a busy network. If your network's particularly busy, there's somebody in the house playing games across the internet, you're probably going to get an awful lot of timeouts. It might make it easier for you if you actually stopped other people in the house playing the games, but the internet itself could be quite busy, which might give you some problems looking up. So there's a few timeouts here. They've tried again. Keegan timed out. Keegan okay. Okay, so if we go back and go into configure, we go upgrade firmware, checking for updates, fetching information. Are you sure? Yes or no? Yes, we are sure. Upgrading firmware. So if you see here, fetching information, transferring the patch file, whilst this window says upgrading firmware, patching Sharpfin base, telnet server, web server, patching done, rebooting, and that's it. The radio will automatically reboot and our patches are installed. Okay, the next thing to do is to put the radio back into its original state. So we're going to turn it on again. We'll let it connect to the network. It saves rogue error messages. Remembering that it's still configured to use our patch server, so we need to leave the patch server running so we can look up names. There we go, started its lookup. It's connecting, so now I can press back and go to configure. I can go to network config, I can go to edit config, and now you need to put it back into its original state that it was when you bought the radio, your original configuration that you did through the manual. Automatic DHCP is what I originally had, so set that actually going. Make sure that screen didn't pop up. Configure. I think it timed out on me there. Network configure. Edit config. Auto DHCP, yes. That's better. It's now saying connecting to network because it's going to reconnect. And the one thing it's stopped doing now is talking to this program here. So you notice there's no lookups going on anymore here. It's all back up and running. So it's not using that anymore. We can get rid of it. We can get rid of the README file, and we don't need that directory anymore.